Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, hey, I hope you're having a wonderful week. Today on the program, we have computer and technology news. Everything from new products, new announcements, policy changes, just a little bit of everything. And of course, top headlines from the from the past couple of hours or so, always up to date. And hey, we hope that you enjoy your stay here. Now, of course, thank you for tuning in to the program. ComputerAmerica.com, that's the first thing that you need to know about, because that's going to have everything, including show notes, past shows, future shows. That will be the podcast. If you can't catch us live on IRN, then the podcast is the next best place wherever podcasts are heard. And also be sure to check us on social media and keep an eye out for contests and giveaways. Those should be coming out hopefully here in the next couple of weeks. So everyone, let's go ahead and, not really much to say. Let's go ahead and jump into computer and technology news for the whole hour, brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. And honestly, by Google's own reputation, they tend to pull the plug on things, sometimes before their time, sometimes way after their time, but Google is well known for killing off projects. And every time I see Stadia, I always think, this is it. This is the article saying that Google is going to stop developing the Stadia platform. But much to my surprise, they actually did not with this one. Instead, they're doing something that, could be kind of seen as a, maybe like a last-ditch effort, but this is something that should have been done way before. As with any new platform, console, with anything new that you try to put out there, you need to entice people to come to your platform. And so I was happy to see this. I want the Stadia platform to work as best as it can, because, hey, competition, and I think that cloud streaming will eventually become something that people should really take notice of. But hey, this is a step in the right direction. So credit where credit is due. Mr. Chris Holt from Engadget writing this, saying that Google is looking to make Stadia more attractive to developers and publishers, and it's bringing in a more generous revenue sharing split. Perfect. More money to the people making the games for the console. It's great. Those behind the games released on Stadia after October 1st will receive 85% of sales revenue, with Google taking a 15% cut. That split applies to the first 3 million of sales and will only be in place until the end of 2023. So quite a narrow time frame there, but hey, a year and a half of better revenue share is better than nothing. Stadia will return to the current revenue split after that point, and Google will share, by the way, 70% of that revenue with publishers, and the pool will be divided based on player engagement. There you go. By the way, they also mentioned that starting this month, new titles that join Stadia Pro lineup, which is the library of games that are included with the membership. So when you pay $10 for the service, all of the Stadia Pro games would be included in that. They mentioned that under updated terms, we'll receive a cut of the $10 a month subscription. So essentially saying that everyone who pays the $10, all that gets thrown into a pool. 30% off the top of that pool, let's say you have 1 million people, so $10 million. 3 million of that would just go directly to Google for running the service and all that good stuff. And then the 7 million would be divided among all the games that are part of that, with let's say half of everyone plays a singular game in that. 3.5 million of that goes to that one game, and the other 3.5 would go to everyone else based on how much players are playing. Now, obviously, I don't know the current subscription numbers for Stadia. I hope I'm very far off in assuming there's only 1 million people, because $10 million is just not that much money when it comes down to it. But hey, it's something. It's certainly something. They're mentioning that Google is using something called session days as the key metric. Each separate day that a user hops into a Stadia Pro game counts as a session day. If someone plays a title twice in 24 hours, it still counts as a single session. Essentially what they're saying there, and this really does matter, is that the games that will be developed for Stadia will be those that take full advantage of that revenue split. The ones that will be included in the Pro version, ones that aren't just ported over to Stadia, but ones that will be developed exclusively for the Stadia platform, means that they will be games that highly encourage getting on at least once a day. Maybe you have a set of dailies, a set of chores. Take Pokemon Go, for instance, where you catch one Pokemon a day and, visit one Pokestop a day. Things like that encourage you to at least, get on once and get your rewards. So obviously for the studio, that will be hugely important. Now, the idea is to give developers and publishers an incentive to promote their Stadia Pro games wherever users can click on a link. This program will get underway later this year, and they mentioned that that's an affiliate program that they're working on. Now, although all of these changes will benefit developers and publishers, it's perhaps the 85-15 revenue split that will be most enticing. And they mentioned that as with the lower revenue cut Apple takes from the first 1 million per year of App Store sales, the move could mostly benefit indie studios and publishers, which, again, starting a new console, no one is developing for you. No one is, really working on these games. And by and large, the only people that will put games on your console will be those either who are large video game studios and they feel like, we'll port the game over because, hey, why not? We want to be on as many consoles as we can. Which is, hey, all well and good, but to get the smaller indie companies and the indie games, which make up the bulk of a lot of these game libraries that, even Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo are working, well, not Nintendo. Nintendo is, almost like an indie studio on its own, even though they're very mainstream. Everything that is on the Switch is Nintendo. So, although I think they're allowing ports, but still. Anyways, you want those indie developers. That variety of games is certainly an appeal. And hey, I think Google made a good step for this. Now, they said that this approach might work for Stadia. The Epic Game Store and Xbox PC Store take 12% of sales, while Steam and consoles digital storefronts typically take about 30%. It's hard to be competitive because obviously Google doesn't want to hemorrhage money, but at the same time, I feel like Stadia is definitely at risk of becoming a completely failed service if they don't start getting better games and, kind of exclusive titles for their console to really attract people to it. Now, Google shut down its internal game studios in February, turning Stadia into a game streaming platform for third-party titles only. Meanwhile, Stadia product chief John Justice left the company in May. Perhaps strengthening relationships with publishers and developers can help Google steady the ship. So the guy that was in charge of the service left. The studio that was making games for the service shut down. Stadia just doesn't have that much good news, and this is, as I said before, just something, a small positive that we can actually talk about Stadia. But if I'm giving my complete honest prediction, Stadia might last another year or two, but so far they have not given it and they can give it all the chances that they want. But they really seem to have it out there and have other people use the service, just like Google, Gmail, Google Search, all that kind of thing. But they don't want to invest themselves too heavily in it. They want to create the platform and everyone else kind of create the content for the platform, much like YouTube and so many other things that Google does. They're not in the business of really creating content for people. They want to provide platforms for people because that passive income is just so enticing. We'll see if they can do it, but it has not been looking good lately for Google at all. Okay, Stadia. Google's been doing just gangbusters. They're doing good. Okay, our next story. How about some hardware news? And hardware, I mean like infrastructure news. I always like following these, just hearing about the latest ones. Although the numbers are getting so large, it's starting to mean less and less for me. But check out this one. A new world record of data transfer speeds. If you don't recall, well, they've been getting up there. And this new one is a whopping 300, but there's more to that. But let's see. The newest record. Hey, look at that, sound effects. Product or show quality. Anyways, 319 terabits per second. It's pretty crazy. And that was transferred over 3,000 kilometers with a 4-core optical fiber. It's pretty crazy. 319 terabits per second over 3,000 kilometers. And I'm not the most up to date with, 3,000 kilometers to miles is about 1,864 miles. That's a really good distance because that distance, I'm sure, would travel, of course, lots of terrain, but even better would be lots of ocean. Yes, those interconnected cables that help us get information from one continent to another. It's really incredible. They said that a 319 terabits per second long haul transmission of wideband using this whole wavelength division multiplex channel, blah, 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 4-core optical fiber. And it's actually a press release and, kind of goes into the background and how they're able to do it. And they even have this nice little chart here that shows, I think, the record. And let's see. So this one is a record because it beats pretty much everything in previous years where it's transferring even more data. Previous records were anywhere from like 250 to like 300 terabits per second. And then for distance, before this, the best record was in 2020 was about 2,000 kilometers, so about 1,000 miles. About 1,200 miles. This one just beat it completely in speed and in beat it in speed and distance, although I will say, for single mode multi-core fiber, so there have been better transmission speeds. So, and it's actually along the x-axis. So that means that over zero distance, almost like within its own lab and in ideal settings and that whole thing, over like 1 kilometer or 0 kilometers, you were able to get 600 terabits per second. But this one, you're able to get over 3,000 kilometers. You're able to get, about half that speed, which is still very, very impressive. So that one came out today, and it was very cool to see that, hey, there may be better internet for everyone, and those kinds of achievements should always be pointed out. Things are just getting better. Okay, so this one came out yesterday, and I wanted to kind of talk about this because it made a lot of headlines, and don't get me wrong, it's bad. It's not a good look for Tesla. But this one made the rounds, and for those who didn't hear about it, I'm going to try to summarize as best I can. I have this article that we'll link in the show notes from autoevolution, which is a website that we normally don't kind of go to, but it's this nice little mix of cars and technology. And in regards to Tesla, where a gentleman had a problem with his Tesla. And when he went to the Tesla help center or dealership or whatever, they told him that it was going to cost $16,000 for Tesla to fix it, for the dealership to fix it. $16,000. He's welcome to pay that, and they'll have it fixed for him. He said, no, thank you. He went to a garage that works specifically with electric cars, and they were able to fix his car for $700, and that's everything beginning to end. Now, this one made a lot of headlines because it's like, wow, Tesla is overcharging by 16 times as much as what they should be charging. My understanding of this story and how this went was that he hit something on the road. Whatever debris was on the road, it broke his coolant system. It shattered, one of the couplings for his, the system that deliver cooling to the batteries, so that the batteries don't overheat and explode. Very important, and it's very, very dangerous if that were to go wrong. Anywho, he needed to get that thread replaced, but from my understanding, Tesla only replaces assemblies, and this is to reduce cost and for a number of reasons. It reduces cost, it reduces the chance of malfunctions and other repairs going wrong. It really standardizes the whole thing, and this gets into the right to repair, which has come up on the show a number of times. But even though it was a small part of an assembly, he had to pay to replace the entire battery system that normally lasts 5 to 8 years. So keep that in mind if you ever buy a Tesla. You need to after 5 to 8 years, it's probably a good idea to replace the battery system in your car. But I digress. He had to pay for a whole new battery system, even though the only thing that was wrong with it was the system that delivered the coolant. And obviously, this other garage was able to rethread it and replace a couple of tubes and get it working again for much, much less. But it's not a Tesla approved repair job. And they said that, because of how this worked and what happened, and because Tesla themselves did not approve the repair, they may actually kick them off the supercharged network, which lets you use superchargers across the country to charge your car up in, very, very fast. And again, they do that because it's an unapproved repair, and the Tesla superchargers, through maybe a bad repair job or whatever, could cause a fire while the car is being fixed. And that's also a bad look, as we've seen over the past couple of months, that, Tesla's catching fire and killing the people inside. That's a very bad look for the company. Now, with all that being said, I'm not saying that the garage that did the fix for $700 does a bad job. If anything, they probably did it as good as anyone else. Now, should Tesla be charging people $700? Should they be charging people $16,000 to replace the whole battery system when only a small subset or small subsystem of the batteries needed the repair? No, that is a total cheapskate move, and they don't have to provide training. They don't have to hire experienced car mechanics and car engineers, because all they do at these locations that they fix Teslas, they would take out the entire assembly, that is the batteries, the coolant, all that stuff, and swap in a factory new battery system, coolant, whatever. Take what was pulled from the car, send it back to Tesla, have it refurbished in one location where it's much cheaper, and you only have to hire so many people that know what they're doing, and they can work on it at the factory, refurbish it, and then sell it as new from Tesla. That costs a lot of money for the end user, but yeah, it's much cheaper, much more cost effective, and it's all around better. Like, this is definitely a win for Tesla if they're able to, do this to everyone, which as of this moment, they definitely are able to do it. And I think that's also a part that could get them in trouble. The whole having to buy a new battery assembly and they take away your old one. That was a fight, as I understand it, kind of reading some of the sites and reading the website here, was that's a fight that's happened in Finland, of all places, and other countries, I'm sure, is that, let's say you go to a car mechanic, you pay for a new engine, they take out the engine, you pay all this money. Well, at the end of the day, you could tell them, I don't want that old engine, throw it away for me, or, you keep it and refurbish or whatever. I really don't care what happens to it. But you also have the right to any part that comes off of your car. You have the right to keep it because that is your property and they have to return it to you. Not so much with Tesla. They're saying that no, he could not even keep his old battery pack that cost him $16,000 to replace. So it cost him $16,000, and he's essentially losing something that he's already paid for that cost him, $16,000 in the first place. Tesla does this, again, the whole right to repair argument, because they don't want refurbished parts being on the market that Tesla can't verify if they've malfunctioned once, letting people keep it, tinker with it, and put it into other Teslas starts to create this whole issue of, malfunctioning parts being available online, and people just don't know that. And of course, these Teslas, they're essentially computers that are cars, not even so much cars that are computers, but yeah, they're computers that are cars, and they have to be very interconnected. That you have to make sure that all the sensors work, everything just clicks and goes seamlessly together for these Teslas to operate as they do. Now, all that being said, all of this whole thing with, $16,000 to repair where it should only cost $7,000, so on and so forth, I think Tesla obviously charges too much. They're taking the cheap way out at the expense of the consumer. But for the system and the experience and what Tesla is, kind of offering people with the supercharged network and the cars and all the systems that operate in the cars, to make that work, they have to do a lot of the stuff. They could have handled this better, and I think that maybe they should be able to repair more of the systems without them being completely integrated, but we're seeing that happen in technology all the time. Now, with that being said, that's where, again, right to repair comes into play, and qualified professionals who are doing good work and doing good repairs on these systems should have the right and should have the ability to fix these cars in the aftermarket. I've always felt like if you pay to buy a car, a tractor, a computer, a phone, whatever it is, if you pay to own that device, you should own that device. It's not really up to a third party. It's not really up to the company that sold it to you to come back and say, oh, by the way, you can only do XYZ with the piece of hardware that you bought. I get it. Third-party services, continuous Apple updates, updates to Tesla and the Supercharge network. You have to make sure everything is compatible and nothing is remotely in conflict with each other. But it's a very fine line, and if people want to push, and it may be completely justified to give this up, but if people want to push this idea that the right to repair and the ability to make these much cheaper and much more affordable repairs to their cars, something has to give. And it might just be Tesla's ability to offer supercharging and offer a lot of these services that they currently do. And it may be for everyone's benefit that they actually do that. So that made the rounds again yesterday, and it did seem like a little bit of a clickbait. It's not just Tesla overcharging $15,000 for a simple repair. It's more so Tesla charging people a much more complicated fix for a seemingly simple repair. It's not great, but I can see why they do it. It's a lose-lose, really, for Tesla, and for the consumer, there's a fight to be had there. But, we've definitely seen it before. Now, with that being said, we can go ahead. Sorry about getting on my soapbox there. I think that our next story that we could do, tons of different ones. How about this? Quibi, if you don't know, was a short-form video service that tried to make episodes and seasons and series about, I think they were aiming like 3 to 5 minutes long an episode. So think like HBO Max or any other content service provider, but their videos were aimed at people with attention spans of a few seconds instead of a few minutes. It was really niche, and well, it didn't go well. The service shut down, and they started to sell it off for pieces. Its IP, its videos, and so on and so forth, they were kind of sold off piecemeal. But to show you just how niche that market was, turns out the zombie, as the article points out here, the zombie of Quibi actually picked up a couple of Emmys, and I didn't even know this was a thing, but Quibi was able to claim 8 Emmy nominations for its series, and really goes to show again just how much it wasn't really competing. And you could see it here. They said that Quibi was not long for this world, but its spirit refuses to let us move on from its chaotic memory. It was shut down in December, and the Doom streaming service scooped up several Emmy nominations today for its short-form originals across 3 categories. They said that the service received 8 nominations for 3 of its series, including Die Hard, Mapleworth Murders, and Reno 911. As was the case with a handful of Quibi originals were nominated for Emmys last year, the service cleaned up short-form content categories, which makes a lot of sense considering there was not a lot of competition. And you can see the full list here. They picked up, 5 nominations for Outstanding Actor in a Short-Form Comedy or Drama Series. They picked up 4 for Outstanding Actress in a Short-Form Comedy or Drama Series, and another 5 for Outstanding Short-Form Comedy, Drama, or Variety Series. And they said that after Quibi called quits last year, many of the originals were scooped up and rebranded as Roku Originals. That's it. That's what it was. And they mentioned that unlike the original platform, Roku will not stream them with Quibi's turnstile formatting, which adjusted the viewer point of view based on the orientation of their phone. Roku announced earlier this year that 75 plus originals would come out in the on the service this year, including a dozen previously unrelated shows. Now, that's the question though. even though clearly critically acclaimed, lots and lots and lots of and by the way, I was actually counting all of the nominations. Turns out, again, only 7 of them were was it 7 or 8? I'm sorry, only 8 of these entries were from Quibi. Anywho, even though they're picking up a ton of Emmys, and in a couple of these categories, it's almost entirely Quibi, with like Netflix picking up one and Facebook Watch picking up the other. Even though they were successful critically, did anyone really even watch them? That's the bigger question. And for the service to go out of business, probably not. Now, the company announced in June that it was ordering a second season of Kevin Hart's Die Hard title, Die Harder. Colin Davis, Roku's head of original scripted programming, said in a statement at the time that the series exploded out of the gate, and after a spectacular debut this weekend, was quickly becoming one of the most watched Roku originals on the Roku channel. And there you go. So it's doing good enough as compared to its competitors, but is it doing good in general? They're leaving that one a little in the unknown category, but I digress. Okay, this next story, I want to pick this up because it only came out a couple of minutes ago, and I wanted to get to the bottom of this, because if you've been paying attention to our cybersecurity segments here on the program, there's been a lot of cybersecurity problems with seemingly Russian ransomware and Russian hacking. Well, something happened today, and this only happened about 2 hours ago. Russian ransomware group's dark web sites mysteriously go down, and that's not normal. It's certainly not normal. It said that dark web sites tied to the Russian-based cyber gang AREvil were not operating on Tuesday, just 2 weeks after the group launched a large-scale ransomware campaign that affected more than 1,500 companies around the world. We covered this with Mike Cermak, where AREvil was they hacked into the software that let data data companies kind of set up and manage companies remotely. So they hacked into the remote software that allowed them to take over companies. And so they hacked one, and by extension, they are able to hack 1,500 other companies by hacking one company. It was a really good get for these criminals, and they were trying to get $70 million worth of ransom from these 1,500 companies, because they knew as soon as one company were to, let's say, pay whatever ransom that they wanted, and they would publish the keys, because it was essentially the same ransomware that was infecting all of them. They could not bargain individually with these companies. It had to be a collective bargaining, and $70 million, one of the most expensive ransomwares to date. Now, that's what they were going for, and yeah, that whole thing was not resolved. Now, it's unclear, as Axios kind of reports here, it's unclear whether the sites are down because of a technical problem, a law enforcement operation, or some other explanation. The group's public spokesperson has also been silent on message boards since last week, and they mentioned that President Biden called Russian Vladimir Putin on Friday to demand that he crack down on cyber gangs operating in Russia. He warned that the U.S. would take action to defend its people against ransomware attacks, and suggested that that could include taking the hackers' servers offline. So, by the way, there was also another news report that we didn't get to because I think it came out over the weekend. A lot of these ransomwares have the same security feature, I guess, security for the hackers at least, where they can detect what language is the default language of of the operating system, and they can detect that if it's Russian, don't infect this computer, or at least don't hold it for ransom. Essentially, the prevailing thought right now is that while maybe not strictly sanctioned by Russia and not directed by Russia, so they claim, they are very careful not to bother Russian police or the government or any kind of law enforcement in Russia, because they know that, as you know, they may be operating out of Ukraine, they may be operating out of Russia, you know, someplace within Russia's jurisdiction, that as long as they don't piss off the Russians, they can continue to wreak havoc elsewhere in the world. That was a fun little fact, that again, if a computer is in the Russian language, don't attack that computer. Which, hey, you know, learn Russian and you too can be immune to this kind of thing. So, why are they being taken down, or, you know, why is it down? It could be just a glitch. It could be something like that, although it seems very unlikely that something that was operating just fine a couple of hours ago suddenly is not. But if I had to guess, I would say that, yeah, law enforcement is getting closer and closer to getting this criminal gang, because you don't just hold people ransom for, you know, you don't hold international companies and other services held up for ransom for $70 million without law enforcement going, oh yeah, that's a problem we need to address. Now, with that being said, security experts have said that the cyber criminal groups sometimes disband and return under different names, and it therefore currently can't be determined if the disruption to our evil websites is permanent. But of course, the full extent of the ransomware is still unknown. The one that is currently going through 1,500 companies plus, you know, we're still learning about what it's actually doing. But the group was responsible for several other prominent ransomware attempts, including one of the forced major meat suppliers, JBS, to briefly shut down its beef plants across the U.S. It's yeah, and by the way, that whole service was Kaseya. Was actually the service that was hacked and led to all the other companies being hacked. Really, really bad. I don't think that they would go dark for no reason. They seemed the fact that they had a forum that they were setting up press releases on and talking to reps on the regular. Meant that they were open to communication, but for the website to go down, for the forum to go down, and for the representative to stop talking altogether, kind of makes me feel like law enforcement was getting either too close for their comfort, or law enforcement actually was able to reach them. Especially when you have things like the FBI or the CIA. They're very, very capable, and yeah, Russian ransomware groups go dark. We'll find out more about that soon, I'm sure. Okay, there's that one. Let's go ahead and move on to story number 6. We've only gone through 5. Man, this is flying by. Okay, story number 6. Let's talk about AT&T. Not the biggest fan of this whole thing, and really, I think that these companies are tiptoeing a line. Because under the previous administration with Ajit Pai and the FCC, net neutrality was gone. It's it was not really something that the previous FCC really committed to, and companies started to make plans accordingly. But now with the current administration, Biden put out like an executive order saying that the FCC should adopt net neutrality. The president does not have the authority to implement net neutrality. That is still up to the discretion of the FCC and its board members. But hey, his word means that you should do this, and his people have been assigned to the FCC. So it's probably going to happen. These companies are tiptoeing a line because they want to implement these things, but they know that until some serious legislation is actually passed and things are set in stone, they don't want to operate and start putting in these rules that are just going to be overturned in the next couple of months, or just every couple of years, just the whole thing just be flipped on its head. But here we go, another tiptoe, saying that AT&T will let unlimited data, because we have learned that cell phone companies have no idea what unlimited means other than a marketing tool. Unlimited data customers pay more to avoid the slow lane. AT&T says users can soon stay in the fast lane, quote unquote, on its priciest unlimited plan. We're going to go into this, and I'm sure that the article, kind of mentions this, but we have proven, especially over the course of the pandemic with more people using the internet and using these services, that, the idea of data caps being imposed for network stability and for fairness, quote unquote, never really is a thing. So, yeah. Now, getting into this, on Monday, AT&T announced the end of slowdowns for smartphone users who purchase the unlimited data, but the perk is only for customers who buy AT&T's most expensive plan. AT&T will continue to sell two other quote-unquote unlimited, which is weird. If you would assume that if you have any kind of unlimited in the title, it would be unlimited. But no, turns out there's like an unlimited extra, I think, is, let's see. So the unlimited elite is the actual $85 completely, no data caps, you're good to go. Whereas the unlimited extra, which, okay, it's $75. It does have, it does have restrictions, as well as the unlimited starter. The fact that they all have unlimited, I guess it's their attempt to turn the word unlimited from an actual definition and meaning into something that is more a marketing ruse. Now, with that being said, none of those plans come with unlimited data of the high-speed variety, but that will change this week in a press release. They mentioned that customers will soon be able to stay in the fast lane with unlimited high-speed data, and they will enjoy AT&T's high-speed data regardless of how much data they've used. And they will start rolling out this enhancement this week, and elite customers everywhere will soon receive a text notifying them when the benefit has been added. As the change hasn't taken effect yet, AT&T's website says that the Unlimited Elite comes with 100 gigs of premium data, and that after 100 gigs, AT&T may temporarily slow data speeds if the networks are busy. Which, who's to say what's busy, and who's to say if AT&T wouldn't just do that on the outset. Now, with that being said, the extra plan, which is the second tier, you get about 50 gigs of that premium data, and then the unlimited starter simply carries the caveat that AT&T may lower the speeds if the network is busy. So you really don't get any guarantee that you get a minimum amount of high-speed data, but yeah, hopefully you don't live in an area with network congestion. Now, they said that obviously AT&T does this. Now, with that being said, T-Mobile does the exact same thing, and Verizon definitely does the exact same thing. No one really has that true unlimited tier, and even including different plans, all of them at some point kind of throttle, be that 50 gigs, 100 gigs, at least AT&T. And this is the part that I guess has to be applauded to some point. At least with this change, because before this change, you really didn't have the option. After this change, you finally have at least one plan that is truly unlimited, no throttling. You can do what you want with the data that you pay for. So they mentioned that AT&T lifts video cap and raises hotspot data. They're also lifting the video resolution cap on the Elite plan, allowing 4K streaming instead of just 480p, which they call DVD quality, or regular HD. Currently, Unlimited Elites uses what AT&T calls Stream Saver to limit them to 480p, and of course, restricts the data that anyone can use. Which, again, it's just crazy that before this, and it's still currently, I think that only the elite kind of get this 4K ultra high definition service. People are paying, $1,200 at a time to buy these phones that can display in 4K. They're OLED screens. They're amazing screens with amazing visuals. And then up until this point, there was no way for your data provider, let's say you're using AT&T, there was zero chance that AT&T would deliver a service that you could take advantage of everything that you just paid for. You might as well have bought, the $200 phone as opposed to the $1,200 phone with the quality of service that you were able to get with your data company. It's really atrocious. It's really atrocious what these companies have been doing, because I feel like, again, if the network is having trouble, that should not be on, kind of on the consumer's device. That's something that AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, whatever, should be improving their networks on. And yeah, they are improving their networks. And I think that's why, these multi-billion-dollar investments by the taxpayer into these companies is the reason why we finally get a true unlimited plan. It's just, it took us, 5, 6, 7 years? The first time that we had some of these plans was like back in 2013, 2015, something like that. It took a long time and a lot of lawsuits to get to this point. And I would say that this point, that I'm kind of talking about here is still not good enough. There should be no reason why, truly unlimited has to be hidden behind 3 different tiers of unlimited data. Unlimited should mean unlimited, but hey, it's a start. It's more than what we had before this announcement. So there you go. Okay, how about, actually speaking of which, this is a great segue into this. So we actually pull stories from The Verge quite often, and The Verge is partnering with Consumer Reports, and I think this is more knowledge is definitely a good thing. And this is where Consumer Reports has this website. We'll include the website in the show notes. But yeah, it's essentially Consumer Reports, where you can upload your internet bill, you can upload your internet bill and be able to tell them, I'm supposed to be receiving this kind of speed. I'm actually receiving this kind of speed. And you upload your internet bill, and it starts to take down all the fees that you pay, the baseline that you pay. And I think what they're hoping to do with this is that there's a lot of misreporting when it comes to telecommunication companies, that they can say that they provide this much access to broadband, they charge this much for broadband, they only charge these many fees. There's a lot of kind of smoke and mirrors when it comes to accurate reporting of internet speeds, internet quality, where it's actually available, how much they're charging, so on and so forth. So Consumer Reports is trying to take it onto themselves to get an accurate survey of what this stuff looks like. Now, what they're saying is that they will run a speed test, and the speed test, I'm sure, is like any other that you've taken through Google or Ookla or whatever it may be. They'll test your internet connection, and it'll help us compare quality and speeds across the country. And they mentioned that they'll guide you through your results to kind of show, what is that you're doing. They mentioned that we'll analyze your bill to compare companies, prices, and services. We'll use information from your bill to understand what consumers actually pay for broadband, and then the basic information. They'll ask a few basic questions about your internet service, and all of the question responses will be anonymous. Again, the main point with this whole thing is that they're hoping to they're hoping to collect enough data to get an accurate picture of what internet in this country looks like, because you can't rely on the internet companies. They're self-reporting, and it's very, through a lot of lobbying, through 20 years of lobbying, it's very convoluted. And what actually happens is kind of questionable. So good on Consumer Reports, good on The Verge for helping with this. And, the Let's Broadband Together movement, hey, it's definitely something worth paying attention to. So there you go. Okay, everyone. That's a little PSA, and we can go ahead and move on from that. Let's see. So we only have time for like 2 or 3 more stories. I want to make sure that I get these important ones. This one might be the most important of all. This came out yesterday, but we didn't have a live show yesterday. So $1.56 million. What would you do with $1.56 million? And if your answer isn't buying a sealed copy of Super Mario 64, you have different priorities than a certain someone. Well, this happened yesterday, and at auction, you're looking at a sealed Super Mario 64 sells at auction for a record-breaking $1.56 million. It's in pristine condition, doesn't get any better than this, and yeah, it has a new home. Saying that Nintendo games have been commanding massive prices at auction this year. A rare copy of Legend of Zelda fetched a record $870,000. And they mentioned that Mario 64 sold for almost twice that, for about $1.56 million over the weekend. And that may seem like an insane price for the best-selling game that millions of people owned, but the auctioneer says that the copy's mint condition sets it apart from your dusty old one. According to Heritage Auctions, the box game had a 9.8 A++ sealed rating on the WATA scale. That means it's immaculately preserved and in the same condition as when it left the factory. Such highly rated games are often called case fresh, as in it gets no better than what this is. And of course, add to that the cultural impact of Super Mario 64, and they mentioned that was the first true 3D escapade and a massive successful launch for the N64 title, or I'm sorry, the N64 console. It's essentially, it's because it's so culturally relevant and it's so pristine that it commanded this. They also mentioned that the Super Mario Brothers for the Nintendo Entertainment System sold for a measly $660,000 for was essentially the exact same. They also mentioned that a 9.4 A+ sealed copy of Final Fantasy III pulled in about $96,000 a few days ago. Video games are really hot right now, and much like NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and much like high art, personally, maybe I just don't have enough money, but I'm like really into video games. I don't know who would spend this much money on something that millions of people have access to and have owned. It just seems it seems like the lack of scarcity of these things should be a huge deterrent from these things, commanding such a high price. But it doesn't seem like it. No, if anything, it just says that, so many people own this that it's culturally relevant instead of being, one of millions. I don't get it. Okay. Let's see. So there's that one. How about we talk about, Apple and a new product that I never thought would come out. But check this out. A MagSafe battery pack. And, for Apple, who never really wants to change the look and feel of their devices and never admit that, that they're wrong in their original design, it's something different. Saying that Apple has launched the MagSafe battery pack for its iPhone 12 lineup. Saying that one of the magnetic batteries costs about $100, as all things Apple. I'm sure you get it for a lot cheaper. But still, this one's actually available through Apple's website. And they said that Apple has released battery cases for iPhones in the past, but the new pack attaches to the iPhone 12 phones thanks to embedded magnets. And it will work with all 4 of the phones in the iPhone 12 family, and you can see what they look like here. This is the device. It will be an obvious bulge in the back. Now, let's find out why people would actually want to do this. Saying that while the iPhone 11 battery case has a physical camera shortcut button, since this accessory is just an attachable pack, that means it doesn't come with any other feature for your phone besides giving it extra juice. Now, Apple says that the pack charges with up to 5 watts of power, so it won't be the fastest way to charge your phone. Apple says that the battery requires the latest operating system, and Apple shows that the delivery time may be out of stock until July 22nd. Now, 5 watts of power, I think, iPhone batteries. iPhone 12 battery capacity is, 5 watts seems really, really low. I'm sorry, watts or speed. So it'll take quite a while to actually do it. I want to know how much capacity this actually, this will actually add. Okay, so the MagSafe battery pack that Apple is now selling has a capacity of 1,460 milliamps, and that means that your classic iPhone 12 has anywhere from, depending on what you actually have, anywhere from 2,200 to 2,800 to 3,600 milliamps. Obviously the 12 Pro Max will have the largest. So it could be as much as a 60 or, in some cases like an 80, but most likely 50%, and in some cases like a 30% increase in battery capacity. It's, not incredible. Like, I would say if people are really interested in this kind of thing, maybe look into the things that aren't Apple, or look into cases that are battery packs as well. These, the specs on these battery packs are actually pretty not impressive, but hey, Apple's finally admitting that, hey, maybe people want better battery life on their phones. It could influence future decisions, and that's something. That's a start. Okay. Time for just one more story, and I think this one is going to be it, because so many people have talked about Ring doorbells, and police and government viewing and that whole thing, and that, Ring doorbells might just be one of the largest surveillance networks on everyday Americans that you can get. Well, looks like Ring's making a little change that could definitely affect that, and saying that Ring's end-to-end encryption rolls out globally. And they said that Ring has today announced that end-to-end encryption has exited technical preview stage and is now available for many Ring users across the globe. Note that it says many users and not all users. Once activated, the footage captured by those doorbells is only viewable on the user's enrolled mobile device, reducing the ability for third parties to see the clips. The news follows the rollout of a US-only technical preview at the start of this year. And at the same time, the company is rolling out support for third-party authentication apps for two-step verification. And they also mentioned that users will now be greeted by CAPTCHAs when logging into both Ring app and Neighbors in order to further deter malicious types from trying to gain access. Essentially, I think a lot of this comes at the heels that, Amazon and Ring are sharing too much video footage with law enforcement, even though never really had that thought, because law enforcement still had to get a court order and they had to get permission from the person that owned that device. It's not like any law enforcement could sign into any Ring doorbell and start looking at people's footage. No. The footage that that law enforcement received was footage that people agreed to share with law enforcement agencies. But still, end-to-end encryption, very, very good. Now, with that being said, Ring is making it easier for you to sell your doorbell on by automating the system to transfer the hardware within the app. Now, the move comes shortly after the company announced a shift in how it dealt with requests for footage from law enforcement agencies. Rather than the previous system, officials now have to ask users in the vicinity of an incident to submit footage via a public feed. So it's not even like they could ask anyone. It has to be within a certain number of miles of an incident. Very important distinction. And with that being said, it comes in the wake of the news that the company has partnered with more than 2,000 fire and police departments, and that its Neighbors app had briefly published precise locations of people's homes. Hey, finally, Ring is getting their stuff together, and people are able to really have better control over who's seeing the videos and where. But everyone, the music in the background means that we are about done for the day, and I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in. Tomorrow on the show, we should have Sandy Berger. We have to double confirm that. But hey, tune in 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and we will, of course, have the program here for you, fresh every day. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. ComputerAmerica.com will have the show notes to all the articles and more. If you want to hear more, thank you for tuning in to IRN. Thank you for listening on the podcast. However you listen to Computer America is the best way. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.